On one side fought an elven warrior, with a heart as pure as Manwë, poured all his light into the tree to protect it. On the other, a Balrog of Morgoth channeled all his hatred into the tree to destroy it. Amidst their duel, unending, lightning ensnared the tree. Forging of their conflict a power.
While teaching the stranger new words, Nori also explains to him how the Harfoot migration works. She explains that there are many perils in their journey, and upon learning what peril means, the stranger thinks he's won, recalling what happened with the fireflies, but Nori insists that he's good instead. Upon continuing their journey from Rhovanion, they pass through many lands on their way to the Grove. Unbeknownst to them, a trio of mysterious women find the crater, where the stranger had landed. In the Southlands, Adar is informed by an orc that the tunnel is complete, while Bronwyn informs the men of Adar's message. She urges them to fight with her, but Waldreg speaks up, saying if they do, they'll only end up dying. He urges everyone, especially Theo, to leave and swear fealty to Sauron, so they may live. Back in Númenor, while everyone busily prepares for the coming expedition, Isildur approaches Elendil and asks why he wasn't chosen for the expedition. He believes he's ready to serve, but his father thinks otherwise, reminding him he has no qualifications and that he already wasted his chances. Around the city, some people are unhappy with the Queen and Pharazôn for letting the expedition happen. Among them is Eärien, and she implores 𝐒𝐚𝐬𝐬𝐸 to talk to his father to make him see sense. Meanwhile, Halbrand works at a smithy, where he skillfully forges swords that impress even the owner of the shop. He then makes his way to the palace and explains to the Queen, Galadriel and Pharazôn where he thinks the orcs are headed next in the Southlands, pointing to a watchtower in Ostirith. When Miriel realizes that Halbrand isn't actually planning to return to the Southlands, she becomes unhappy. But Galadriel informs her that when the time comes, Halbrand will do his part. However, in a private conversation with Galadriel, he refuses to participate in any of her plans. When the Harfoots and the stranger enter a forest, Nori and Poppy find footprints of wolves on the ground. Malva, one of the hobbits who are unhappy with the stranger's presence, urges Sadok to leave the Brandyfoots, as she believes they're what caused the strangeness that's been happening in the forest. Later, while she's collecting mushrooms, Malva is approached by Nori and Poppy, who tell her about the wolf prints they found. Before they can move on, the wolves show up and chase after them. When they become trapped, the stranger comes to their rescue, using his power to fling the wolves away. In Númenor, Galadriel agrees to teach some recruits on how to kill an orc. She challenges them to come at her, while Elendil announces that whoever can touch her will be promoted to lieutenant. Valandil attacks first, followed by Antimo, while Isildur observes the fight. Soon, the whole group simultaneously attacks Galadriel, until Valandil manages to nick her clothes, and she congratulates him for his promotion. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐚𝐬𝐸𝐸 talks to Pharazôn about keeping the war from happening, saying he couldn't believe that his father would take orders from an elf. After gesturing for the servants to leave, Pharazôn tells his son that he's going to war for Númenor. He plans to have the king of the Southlands be indebted to Númenor, believing they'll gain much in terms of trade and resources. In the tower, Miriel tells her father that she'll be leaving for Middle-earth, but he advises her not to, saying she'll only find darkness there. In the forest, Nori is excitedly telling the stranger how the Harfoots have finally taken a liking to him when she notices that he's turning the water and his arm into ice. Alarmed, she tries to stop him, but her hand ends up getting encased by ice as well. Suddenly, the ice breaks and Nori ends up getting blasted away, while the stranger finally becomes aware of his surroundings. He approaches a frightened Nori, who then runs away from him. In Lindon, Elrond makes a toast for the union of 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐸𝐸 and Noldor, the dwarves and the elves. But before Durin can take a sip out of his glass, Gil-galad asks him why Khazad-dûm seems to be quite busy with its mines. Instead of answering, Durin comments he's also curious about why Lindon has been shipping off its warriors and expanding its cities quickly, when normally they move so slowly. After Elrond tries to diffuse the tense atmosphere, Durin asks where they procured the table that they're dining on, saying the stone they used is actually quite sacred to the dwarves. 𝐄𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬 apologizes and says he'll send the stone table back with Durin when he goes back home. Later, when they're alone, 𝐄𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬 asks Elrond to recount the story of the Song of the Roots of 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬. Elrond talks about a battle that happened among the peaks of the Misty Mountains over a tree, between a pure-hearted elf who poured his light into the tree to save it, and a Balrog of Morgoth, who poured his hatred in it to destroy it. During their battle, lightning ensnared the tree, containing both light and darkness. As it seeped from the roots into its depths, the intertwined lightning now lies deep within the mountains. After the story, 𝐄𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬 wants to know if the dwarves have found the ore that contains the light of the lost Silmaril, but Elrond refuses to break his promise to Durin. The High King then shows him the state of the linden trees, which have begun to decay, and he says that without Mithril, the elves will begin to fade away. But still, Elrond refuses to break his promise to his friend. Inside a tavern in Armenelos, Valandil and Antimo are approached by Isildur, who asks them for forgiveness. He wants Valandil to recommend him for a post, but Valandil no longer wants to stake his name for him. Later, 𝐄𝐚𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 sets fire to a ship that Isildur planned to stow himself away on. As they escape the boat, 𝐄𝐚𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 slips, and later after the two boats explode, it's revealed that Isildur helped 𝐄𝐚𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 escape to safety, and he even lies so 𝐄𝐚𝐬𝐬𝐬 won't get in trouble. Because of what happened, Miriel now has more doubts regarding the expedition, and while Pharazôn suggests that the voyage waits, Galadriel insists they can't delay, as the threat will grow stronger. The Queen decides they convene again tomorrow to make a final decision, and she wants Halbrand to be present. Back in Lindon, after Elrond shows Celebrimbor the piece of Mithril he got from Durin, Celebrimbor admits that he knew of the king's plan, but 𝐄𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 forbade him from saying anything to Elrond. He confirms that Mithril is indeed the ore they've been seeking, the one that will keep the elves from fading away. Elrond is crestfallen, torn about whether he should save his race or break his promise toward Durin. Meanwhile, in the smithy, Galadriel visits Halbrand and apologizes for using him. She needs his help, as it depends on him whether the expedition continues or not. Halbrand doesn't want to return to Middle-earth, and if Galadriel is forcing him to go, he wants to at least know why she keeps fighting. She tells him that she can't stop, and recounts how her friends can no longer distinguish her from the evil she's fighting. When Halbrand says he's sorry for what happened to her, Galadriel declares that both of their peace can only be found in Middle-earth, and hands Halbrand his crest before leaving. In the Southlands, Waldreg's company arrives at the Orc camp, and when Waldreg swears his loyalty to Sauron, Adar becomes furious. Waldreg vows to follow Adar instead, and to prove his conviction, he's instructed to kill Rowan. In the Watchtower, Arondir teaches Theo to shoot arrows and imparts words of wisdom that convinces Theo to show Arondir the sword hilt. Arondir believes it to be a key, and he shows it to Bronwyn, revealing the enemy knows that her son has what they're seeking. Bronwyn despairs, believing all they can do now is surrender, but Arondir implores her not to, believing there's still a way for them to survive. The next day, Durin chuckles as the elves struggle to carry 𝐄𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 to Khazad-dûm, which makes Elrond realize that his claim about the stone is all made up. As Elrond's face is heavy, Durin commands him to say what's wrong. Elrond tells him the truth, and when Durin hears that the fate of the elven race is in his hands, he becomes smug. He tells Elrond not to celebrate yet, but he'll be bringing the matter up to his father. At the same time, Halbrand takes his crest with him when he goes to meet the Queen. On the day that the expedition departs, Halbrand is decked in full armor alongside Miriel. Éowyn spots her brother among those who will leave, and later, Isildur reunites with his friends. They watch as Galadriel boards the ship and stands beside Halbrand, and soon, they all depart for Middle-earth.